Alright, wicked.
Is there something like...
This is some altitude up here.
I am a
This
business.
is
That's like a power move.
It feels correct, Andrew.
It feels correct. Thank you for joining me, everyone. Wicked. No, but seriously, thank you so much for coming. This is awesome. I feel like I know some of you, and I don't know if everybody knows everybody. So I might do something to introduce us all to each other, and then we'll jump into it. So today I'm talking about the business of being an artist. So I'll introduce myself in a little second. But before we go into it, in fact, I'll introduce myself now. So, does anyone know what this means?
Hi.
Couche. So, couche is a greeting we have in Sierra Leone. And usually when I introduce myself, I say, hi, I'm André Bright from Sierra Leone, but I'm upgrading my intro to make sure that we have a little bit of our language here. So, I'm going to teach you that today. So we're going to say couche.
Couche.
3, 2, 1. Couche. Yeah. Okay, wonderful. So next time you want to introduce yourself, especially if they're Sierra Leonean, drop that in, and they're going to be like, oh my gosh, it's crazy. But yeah, my name is André Bright from Sierra Leone, and I am all of these things, and maybe a few more dropped in there for good measure. But the main ones are dance theatre producer, and that's how I know most of you. And then architect as well, and most recently, burnout prevention coach. So I go into businesses and help people with stress. I do a lot of coaching one-to-one. I do a lot of consulting business-wise, which is why today... Oh, that's a knock.
There's a knock.
Oh yeah, there's someone at the door.
There's not.
Don't worry, guys. Keep going, keep going.
All right, go. And I do a lot of that stuff, and it's a lot of fun. But I love coming back to the arts world because I never leave, really. And I put it into the work I do all over the shop. So I was really glad when I got the call to be able to do a session with you all about business. But the only thing is, the conversation we had before is that everyone's at a different part of their journey. And I know ELD, for example, provide a lot of support for different stages. So I've kind of designed today in such a way that no matter where you are, there should be at least something that you'll be able to come away with. You will have to stop me if I start talking a lot. Because like if there's a topic that comes up and I'm like, oh, you know what I'm like. Yeah. So yeah, just throw something if I'm going too far down a rabbit hole. But ultimately a lot of it is done like a workshop. So there's gonna be questions, there's gonna be exercises for you to do, and then it will hopefully give you like a little bit of insight into whatever challenge you're in at the moment. So the first part is just like a little brief introduction. So 101, right? No matter where you are in the journey, career journey in general, no matter what your career is, you got to introduce yourself, right? And so what I found is saying I'm Andre and I'm a dancer, or I'm an architect, or I'm a whatever it is cool, but that's how everyone introduces themselves. So one of the things I've been doing recently is answering this question as part of my introduction. Why do I do what I do? So I'm going to give you 1 minute to think about the answer to this question, right? And then we're just going to go around as an introduction to say your name as your part of your introduction, share why you do what you do.
Hello.
We're waiting outside.
Oh,
To get in. Good to see you. In the flesh.
find yourself somewhere
Thank you,
comfortable.
sweetheart. Hello, everybody. Good
How
to
you
see
doing? You don't think you're going to be hiding back there, do you?
Hello.
Nice to meet you. There we go. So just to catch you up, we're introducing ourselves, and what you're going to do is share your name and why you do what you do. Yeah? Question.
But not what you do. Did you have to guess?
Yeah. Oh, you don't have to guess. You can include what you do as part of the framing if you want.
Okay.
But the idea is at least get to this part of the introduction, right?
Right.
Awesome.
Are we writing it down, or are we just going round?
For now, we're just going around. Yeah. That's a good point, actually. If anybody has like a way of if anything comes up today, if you have a phone or something, you can jot down some ideas, put some voice notes in. I'll give you time to find that. All right. Are we ready? Do you need another minute? You need another minute?
Yeah.
It's not easy, right?
Sometimes I feel like I just have to just be put on the spot and then just I just
Yes, yeah.
do you know what I mean?
Ripping the room.
Then you're more likely to get it.
Then you're more likely to hear the truth. It's unpolished. Do you know what? You know this idea of this elevator pitch? It actually does ring true. Like I've forced myself into this situation a few times recently, and I've kind of found a different answer to the question of who are you every time I do it. One of my coaching qualification questions was, how do you coach? And who are you and how do you coach? That first part of the question was the hardest. How do I coach? I answered in like a couple of minutes. Who are you? Took the entire, and it was like a 6-month program. I took 6 months to be able to answer that question. I still don't think I'm done. So I'll go first. What I'll do as well, actually, you all can keep a mental note of timing, right? So I'll try and keep it down to 6 seconds. But my name is André Bright from Sierra Leone. Come on now, that's what's up. And I realized the reason why I do what I do is people. So all the things that I do, that is the most lowest common denominator. Whether it's architecture, it's because I'm building environments for us to use. Whether it's dance, it's because I'm telling stories for people and putting their stories on stage. And when it's coaching, it's because I like to connect with the potential of someone inside. And I genuinely believe everybody is capable. And so I try and create a world for the people in everything I do, especially in Sierra Leone, where I'm from. So that is my minute. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well,
sorry.
Oh, succinct.
Where are you from?
Sierra Leone. Just in case you didn't know. You know what I mean? Do you know what? Everywhere. Everyone will know today. Alright, cool. Let's go around this way because I think you joined towards the end.
Cool. I'm Chris. You know me. I
Whoop,
work
whoop.
here. I'm here all the time. Currently going through a rebrand. I think there's too many Chris's that people don't like.
It's hilarious.
Thinking of like extra far or something like that, like Xmas. Why do I do what I do? I made a lot of bad decisions when I was young, and as an adult, I'm just cleaning them up. So, I'm an artist because I didn't go the right direction in school. But also I believe in what I do, and I love people that I work with, or that I've chosen to work with, and I love the work that we do, and I believe in it.
Come on.
Hello, I'm Saskia. And I'm an arts access facilitator because the spaces that I love the most are the ones that are the most inaccessible to me.
Say that. I like it.
Concise.
Hi, I'm Sephora.
Hi, Sephora.
Hi. I use the arts as a vehicle for social change, and I use that through many different mediums, but I'm driven by access, removing elitism within the arts, and increasing diverse representation, but authentically.
I hear that. Come on now.
I'm lost. Hi guys. My name is Annie, and I believe that my driving force is movement and passion for music. And I keep exploring because currently I'm in exploration phase, and I feel like because I explore, I learn a lot about myself, which is why I keep exploring. And on this journey, I keep meeting like-minded people, which is the phase where I'm in right now. So if I would have to describe it, it's like it's in the movement, it's in the motion. Nothing settled, no clear mission yet, but exploring, and that's where I'm going, kind of following this creative path, creating a creative life at the moment.
I love it.
Okay.
Love it.
This is actually really hard, you know.
Mhm.
Guess what you do.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
yeah. That's what I do.
Okay,
That's
so
not
I was
fun,
gonna
is
say
it?
if I name one.
I do what I do because I believe everyone deserves a platform to tell their story in their own voice, in their own way. So I want to empower and uplift people to take space and take space away from people who have taken up too much space.
Hi, I'm Nadia. I do what I do because I think it's really important to do what I do. No, I think it's important to bring the people I bring into the space that I work to ensure that their stories aren't lost. I'm doing this so vaguely because of Saskia's excellent idea to guess what people do.
I think even if you told people what you did, that they wouldn't know what you did.
Yeah.
You have one of them jobs where you're like, oh yeah, I'm a consultant.
But that was so good, like,
Love it.
so that stories don't get lost.
Yeah.
That really sums up.
I really like that.
Yeah.
Because we belong in this space as much as the people who have kind of historically told those stories belong in that space. That's nice and vague. Good luck.
Yes, indeed.
Hello, I'm Francesca. I do what I do because I love it and it brings me joy. And I like being able to share those things with other people so it can also bring them joy.
Come on now.
Hi everybody, I'm Nicolette and I do what I do because I truly believe that nobody needs or should or has to go through life on their own. If they don't want to. Yes, it's a choice. I do what I do because there is a reciprocation that I organically get by being of service. It just nourishes me and gives me absolute pleasure, but I don't do it for that. That is a result of it.
Come on.
Hi everyone, I'm Marcella, and I do what I do to inspire and heal, and promote healing and give a voice to the voiceless.
Love it.
It's a good room.
I know, right?
Yeah.
The kind of people I want to be around.
You think the choices?
That's a different kind of healing. Yeah, so do you know what? I find, like that driving force, I have had to go back to this to get me through some really difficult seasons recently. So to just remind me why I do what I do. And so I'm realizing though, you can have the same profession, but everyone have a different answer to this, which is what makes it so interesting, because you can work with a team and then actually get to know them a little better and trust them a little better just by that one level of vulnerability to understand what drives them to do that thing. And you'll realize that there's often a thread between them no matter what you do. So that's why I put that question there, just to warm us up into the conversation. So as this is my coachy vibe, right? So the thing is, like I said, everyone's at a different part of their career, right? And this exercise is something that can work depending on how much you fall into it and give yourself to it, right? So the idea is that 10 years from now, what advice will your future self give you about the challenge you're facing now, right? The reason why I ask that question is usually someone comes to me with a problem, a challenge of some description, no matter where they are in their career or whatever it is. And one of the things I always have to remind people is that no matter how big it feels in the moment, go far enough in the future and you'll be past it. And at some point, you might have to take a minute to even remember what that thing that was so big to you even was. And getting yourself past it can actually give you a little bit of insight as to how you might have. There's this internal memory I find, like a universal memory that can answer a lot of questions if we would only ask it. There's a whole question formulation technique I'm developing, which is about how to find the right question. Because if you spend a lot of time trying to find the right answer, but find the right question, and the answer will reveal itself. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes. Okay? 10 years from now, what advice will your future self give you about the challenges you're facing now? Yes?
Is it work related or personal?
The theme of today is the business of being artist. So if you could have it something to do with that. The thing is, even as a business, even as an artist, you're still a human. So whatever your challenges are, they're all connected. Like usually, for example, if someone comes to me with stress, it's not just because they got a workload. It's other stuff that's happening in their life as well. So everything's going to be related to each other. So yeah, 5 minutes, have a think. And for those of you who are comfortable, we can share it at the end. Off you go. Oh yeah, you can talk if you want to discuss.
Where are you going with it? That could be great in business.
Straight into client talk. Oh, these are amazing.
Which ones are they?
I don't
Oh,
know.
the snack
These
ones.
should not be equal. This is going to be a problem this evening.
What, a little glass of milk?
That's a gin really.
Yeah, I forgot how long it was.
Oh,
Thing. But the only stage on that.
It's crazy because you can give each other perspective of pain.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't think. So you think about it in that terms.
I think at 48, hopefully I won't be an artist anymore.
Okay.
I would have like retired and stuff. Definitely not teaching classes anymore. I want to give up on that shit now.
Okay. So do you think when you're older, someone will be like,
Yeah, like this hurts. Like still trying to break. Like respect to like Tim and Samantha, but I don't. I doubt the part there.
It's interesting. Because yeah, to me it's very. I think my future self as well would be like, just get on, with it, kind of, and get over this like thing. Because like, there's a lot of things that I'm just stopping myself from doing.
I think it's like a great age. Like at 28, we had been through, but we were still like in the early stages of our careers. When we get to 2009, 2010, we were like 16 years. So like, we didn't know what we wanted to do, and we didn't really have any direction, but we had direction. And we still had time to make a lot of mistakes, and like be like, oh, that's not the right way. I'll figure out the right way. So I think I just keep throwing that to myself and stuff until it starts to work. But I get that you might not feel like you're around at this stage.
Yeah, I feel this real pressure of like people actually
I'm kind of running by my internal clock.
Yeah, but that's not
So
I know.
I'm kind of judging that to be around the 5 minute mark. I could be way off. But you can still keep going. But is there anyone who'd like to share what you found with that exercise?
No.
That's fine. Yeah. No, it's good. Do you know what actually?
Ask the question.
Do you know what? No, actually was mine. My answer to that. So for me, it was like I felt my future self telling me I'm focusing on all the things I need to say yes to instead of thinking about the things I need to say no to. That was what I got from this question. I think, yeah, getting rid of all the distractions and stuff. So yeah, no for me was my answer. But anybody like to share?
I'll share.
Yeah.
I would say to myself, trust in the process. And I would say to consider that a rose doesn't open before its time. And to use that for myself as a way to support me trusting in the process.
100%. And that's for me as well. Yeah, clap to that future self. I love that. Thank you. I feel like that rose is going to come back at some point today.
Is it?
Yeah, I'm getting that vibe. Anybody else?
Well, when I was thinking, I think I couldn't really make a distinction between personal life and work life. Like, I feel like all the challenges are the same and all that stuff is the same. But something that came up was to do more things that may be uncomfortable. And also to celebrate when you do some good shit. That's just a reminder to myself.
Yeah.
I probably don't spend enough time celebrating these days, you know. Like, even when you complete something, like you've already got like 2 or 3 more things like waiting on your brain lined up that you gotta get to work on straight away before you can even.
And you're thinking like this should have been better and this could have gone better.
Yeah, you're already like analysing the wreckage before being like, oh.
You know what I've been doing? I have a note in my phone that's like it's things that were lovely this week, and then like whatever lovely thing happened, I add it in.
You're
And
so
then
wholesome.
That is amazing.
And then at the end of the week, you see what the accumulation of lovely things, and then you start again.
I love it.
That's
I'm
awesome.
gonna make
It's nice. Focus.
My personal goal was to like be a little bit more annoying.
Yes.
Okay.
I think mostly for like my friends and family, like I'm not as annoying as I could be. And like, if I like message my friends and I ask them something, I won't ask them again because I'll be like, oh, that's annoying, you know. Like, and I've messaged in the group chat and I've left it there and I'm like, no one's replied to me, so they must not want to. But most times people like got other stuff going on in their life or they're like doing their own stuff or whatever. So sometimes it's like, hey, no one replied to our message, you want to thingy, and like maybe doing it 2 or 3 times, you know, until we get the responses, you know. And it's like I think I'm being annoying, but for them, a lot of them like, oh, I genuinely forgot, or I read it and I was gonna reply, but I was doing some other thing, and like you're not really being as annoying as you think.
100% thought you meant you were gonna troll people more, and I was like, yeah.
I was gonna
Troll people more.
troll people.
I was really supporting it.
I mean, being trolled is a sign of affection, so if I troll you, then you should love it.
I knew I was in the right room.
I'm over the corner troll.
I haven't got time to waste trolling everyone.
You know, just the ones I care about.
Yeah, just the ones I care about.
I love it. Anything else before we go?
I wrote persevere has worked until now, and like also to stand my ground, know my worth, and like from a business perspective, price my services accordingly, and like stand by those. Because too many times people will be like, oh, but you know, we only have this budget, and it's like, well, the next time you need to get a bigger budget, and I'll be happy to be involved. But it's like constantly shrinking to try and accommodate people. It just like reinforces like that will always be the thing, and I'm like, but guys, London is expensive. Like we've all got things that we need to pay for, and I think I really need to be a little bit more business minded in that sense.
Well, you're in the right place.
That's why I'm here.
And we will touch on that a little bit later as well, about that pricing thing, because I've noticed in different rooms that's something that keeps coming up. So one of the things we'll look at when we get there is not just pricing, but also what alternative ways of exchange of value might look like. Because I tried this one with, I'm working with the NHS at the moment, and there's a project I did where they had a certain budget. I was like, alright, cool. So I gave them a list of other things that they could offer, which would value up to the same thing, and like a whole list of them. So they just picked the ones that worked for them, and then that worked. So I actually ended up getting more value than what I originally placed. So we'll get to that a little bit later, though. Awesome. Everyone happy?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, cool. So this is one of those parts where I might talk a lot. So if I do, just throw something small. There's loads of little things around. You know, so, yeah, sure. Absolutely. So creativity is a business too, right? So one of the things I find is maybe because a lot of it starts from a passion, we just start doing stuff really well because we love doing it. And then we start to do it bigger and bigger and bigger, and it kind of flows into this stage of becoming a business that we don't really know when it started or not. That we struggle to kind of look at it as a business, right? So a thought I had is like why our creativity deserves structure. Like actually thinking about it, like, you know, what is it that we do? What's the value we provide? And also the flip of this is why wouldn't it deserve structure? Why don't we give it the same attention that we give to another corporate company? Why don't we? Because every company we've seen started as a startup. Every company we've seen had a founder. So we just happen to be the founder of our company. So how can we look at ourselves as a company that deserves that kind of attention? And then what are the steps that we need to do on the way? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think as well, going back to what you were saying, Francesca, is like when we are doing it like this, then you'll find that a lot of it becomes really difficult to underprice yourself when you start doing that. Because like you wouldn't haggle at Tesco. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? You just wouldn't do that. It's just the price is the price. If you can't afford that, either people try and steal it,
Or you wait for the sale.
or exactly, yeah, exactly. So there's you put them in a position where they know that's what the price is, and then they'll get it or they don't, right? So our work deserves structure. As much as we love to be fluid, and it's spontaneous and things like that, there's room for that even with structure. So this part here, going from a hobby to profession to a business, I found to be quite, as I said before, it was really kind of smooth and I couldn't necessarily know when it happened. But I'm going to give you an idea about what I mean by each of the three. A hobby is something you do for fun, just because you love it, right? You know, gardening, dance, I might love to do cartwheels, you know, whatever it is. Specifically.
Someone's teaching a handstand workshop here.
Listen, I love
5
handstands.
hours of handstands.
5 hours is a lot of handstands, I'm not gonna lie.
That's really common in yoga.
If I can't do a handstand,
See,
I'm
there you
doing
go.
that, I'll run
Yeah.
money back.
Balance.
It
What's that?
yeah, as a yoga workshop,
Mm.
handstand practice is really popular.
And do you know what I find as well, side note, is handstands for me can be like a form of meditation once you actually reach it. Once you're in that state, you have to come. Like, I saw this, the complete flip, I saw this documentary about this tightrope walker, and he tightrope between mountains and stuff. And then the interviewer was like, oh my gosh, isn't it scary? Aren't you scared? And all that kind of stuff. And he's like, I can't afford to be scared. Like, I'm actually the most calm when I'm up there because I have to be. Like, the moment any fear or anything like that comes into your mind, you're dead. So I actually have to go into a meditative state to be able to put myself in that position. And if you think about it as what we're doing as well, like if you can reframe a lot of the things that cause us some kind of fear or discomfort and look at it as how can I get into a state of complete calm to handle this problem, then we'll find that actually we can flip the way we approach it completely. So for me, a hobby is something you do for fun, like cartwheels or handstands, right? A profession is something when you start getting paid for it, right? But then there's other things that happen as a result of a profession, right? But you don't necessarily, I wouldn't necessarily, although anything you get paid for really puts you in the business category. What I mean by business here is the structure part. So that's when you start thinking to yourself, not just working in the business, but working on the business, as they say, right? So you're not just thinking about, I'm doing this for fun, I'm getting paid for it. You're thinking, okay, what is the value here? What is the exchange? Who is the client? How can I grow this? Like, what are the profit margins, and where am I investing this money? You know, what are the overheads? Who would invest in this so I can do more of it? Like, how am I impacting people? Like, is there a report I can put together so I can get more funding to do this elsewhere in another part of the country? All those kind of things. That's when you start thinking about it as a business. And again, tying it back to the first question, anything that we do deserves that kind of structure. Like, at this stage, it might not need it, the structure. But the further we move along, for it to continue to grow and for it to keep having that impact, it starts to need that structure. And then this last part is something that I've really been bouncing around recently. If I used to work for a company called Stace, right? And they're a multidisciplinary construction company. I don't know the founder. I don't know the brothers who started that company. I don't know them, right? If they walked into the office and sat next to me, I would probably think, oh, they're quite old, but that's about it. Like, I wouldn't know them. I wouldn't be able to spot them. The thing with us being creatives, a lot of the time, people see you. You are the business. So whereas me as the employee, I can do some random stuff and it won't have any effect on the brand of the business. Anything that we do as an individual is going to have an effect on our brand because we are the brand and the business. So when they have this conversation online about personal brand and your business brand, just know that if until you get to the point where your brand is not your personal name, anything that you do and anything the business does are intrinsically linked. And that can work for your advantage or not. So it can be a good thing as well. So we all know someone where if they walk into the room, you're at ease because they're like, okay, cool, they're here, so everything's gonna be dope. It's gotta be legit. And we all know people where if that name is on a thing, I probably won't go. Right? But that's actually the power of a brand, right? If you get the brand right, you won't have to charge less than what you deserve, right? If you get the brand right, you won't have to ask the question. I remember going to this event at JP Morgan and this woman was like, oh, I can't afford you. I didn't even tell her what I did. Right? Like, just the way you speak and you hold yourself, I know I can't afford your services, but if there's anything that you're doing, could I have a link to your thing or whatever? I just found that really interesting. Like the way you carry yourself, the way you introduce yourself, when you share what you know and you give people value, that brand will increase, right? But you're also your boss. And a question I have, actually, is this on the next slide or not? I can't even remember. I'll come back to that. Actually, the question I was going to ask is, would you, if you were your boss, yeah?
Would you employ you?
Would you, no, not just would you employ you, but would you
like working?
stay being employed by you? Like this question for me, I had to really change it because, like, man, I don't get sick leave. I don't get, like, I'm expected to be working all hours of the night. I'm like waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning doing spreadsheets, like all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, if I was working for Stace, I wouldn't be doing this. So, like, if you were your boss, would you remain part of that company, or would you start going on Indeed and stuff and looking for another employer? And if you would, then ask yourself, like, how could I treat myself as an employee in such a way that this remains a sustainable relationship?
It's hard, isn't it?
But it starts with a question. So, for example, is it that you put boundaries up in terms of how you use your time?
Well, I mean, like, as a boss, I want to give myself infinite holiday, but as an employee, like, this shit's got to get done.
Yeah. But then that becomes so for example, like I said, I'm burnout prevention coach, right? So a lot of the work I do with teams and companies is finding that balance between the work that needs to getting done and not running your employees into sickness. So it's like I find that there's gonna be a balance, and it's individually dependent. So the good thing about us being our own boss is that you know you better than any employer ever would. So we actually know what our limits are. We just ignore them a lot of the time, right? Like we know we're getting close, but we're just like, yeah, but
I can make it through this next
I'll make it through that. And then you end up seeing me, right? So it's like it's something to ask, like what is my limit? And if I find my limit and I'm still getting to the stage where there's work still needs to be done, maybe the question is, how am I approaching my work in such a way that I don't have enough time? So for example, when I was working at a company called Brookfield Multiplex, one of the older guys came to me with a question I never thought I'd get from someone who was effectively representing those who employ me. It was 10 o'clock at night and I'm still at my desk. And this is within my probation period. And he says, you shouldn't be here at this time. Either one of three things is going wrong here. Either you're lazy, and I don't think you are, or two, you don't have enough training to be able to do it within the hours that you've been given, or three, you've been given too much work for anybody to complete within that time. And those three questions have always stuck with me. And even now, I'm still asking myself these questions as the boss of my company. Am I lazy? Could I actually be doing this stuff, or am I just chilling watching Netflix? Right? Probably not. Do I need more training so that I'm more efficient with my time? Am I able to actually complete this work? Is there a system I can complete so I can turn around a show in half the time? Like, so for example, with the architecture stuff, we were given 2 days and I was able to get it down to half a day, which meant that here's the other trick, actually. Side note. Remember, throw something. So, what do you do when you're able to bring something that usually takes you 2 days down to half a day?
Got a day and a half to procrastinate.
No, there's some,
Any habitual procrastination?
Right, yeah. Cool.
I saw something about some guy like talking about products and efficiency, and like, would you pay me? Who's like doing some maths, and they're like, we'll pay you less because you're
Do it
working less
faster,
hours.
yes.
Yeah, and he's like, that doesn't make any sense because
Yeah, that's
if I
probably
can do
Chris
it
Doe.
faster, then I should get paid more.
Yeah.
I can't remember the exact logic of it, but
I'll tell you
I
exactly
didn't
what
get
that
it,
is,
but yeah.
because I know exactly who
Yeah,
you're
do you
talking
prefer
about.
like the time I spent working on this or the efficiency?
exactly. By your
Yeah.
own logic, this doesn't make sense, but I didn't get it. But yeah, go on.
So basically, what you're talking about there, and I'll come back to this point in a second, is the hourly rate concept. Actually doesn't work for people who are good at their job. So if you think about it, if I am really bad at my job and it takes me 10 hours versus someone else who's really good at their job and it takes them 1, then you're actually paying 10 times more for the person who's bad at their job. So it doesn't actually favor the person who's actually good and efficient. That's what they're trying to say.
But it doesn't reward. What you're trying to say is like, if you got your workday from 2 down to half a day, it doesn't reward that. It rewards you to be working consistently all the time and not having a
Exactly.
break. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it rewards
Longer
so-
seems better.
How about
Exactly.
you get a life?
That part as well.
Try something.
So like going back to the question, I had 2 options with that more time. I brought 2 days work down into half a day. I could then do effectively 4 versions in that time and be super efficient. Or what I chose to do actually very similar, was just not use that time. So what I'll do is I'll finish the work in half a day and I'll schedule it to come out on the second day. And then with the rest of the time, I'd actually spend time thinking, because what I realized is when we're at work, we actually don't have enough time to think, although thinking is what we do most. So back in the day when you're working in a factory, you're just going, and then you go home. And the beautiful thing about that is after 5 o'clock, your brain can switch off and you can go and work and be with your family and all that kind of stuff. Whereas now, a lot of the things we do are in our mind. We're creative all the time. You see someone do something, you're like, oh my gosh, I could put that in a show, right? All that kind of, it's always constantly moving. So thinking is what we do most, and I think the next level of just general workforce is going to be a thinking workforce. I think that's where we're kind of heading, is AI and all that kind of stuff is a whole other conversation, but how we use the technology is what's going to set you apart from anybody else, right? So how can we get to the point where we can actually create time to think so that we can continue to be more efficient in what we do, which will give us more time and also without having to fill it necessarily. Yeah? Cool. Does that make sense?
When you tell me again, Andre, you said like, am I lazy? Do I need more training to do this more efficiently? The
Yeah.
last one was,
Or
Is this
have
too
I been
much
given
work?
too much?
yeah.
Yeah. So in my scenario, it was a company that was growing exponentially, and their turnover was crazy. So people would come and they're leaving within like 4 months, and it's because they had so much work to do and they were giving but they were just giving work to people without being able to look after the work they've been given them to do. And so the people who were meant to train you were also being stretched. So there was no one. All two out of the three at least were happening in my case. Yeah. All right. So yes. Oh, actually, are there any questions by the way before I go on? No. Cool. All right. There's a bit of space later on. Here's that question. See. So this is the part becoming your own boss, right? So does everyone know the difference between these? Sole trader, limited company, CIC, charities, all that kind of stuff, right? Anybody who doesn't?
But
Okay.
there's someone in our company that does,
Mhm.
so I don't have to know.
Yes. Okay. Cool. There you go. That's what I'm talking about. Man. Like Chris. Yeah. But it's a good point because it's one of the things I found about this is this used to be one of these things where I used to hate. Oh my gosh, it's so technical. Why didn't I used to do this? But then once you actually understand what you do and how you want to do it, then this becomes really apparent. And then once you actually put it into an entity, that structure that I spoke about, then it actually becomes part of your system. And the good thing about systems is, like the systems in our houses, ventilation, heating, all that kind of stuff, they're all systems in such a way that once you know how to work it, anybody can work it. Which means that once you get to the point where you have a system that anybody can work, you can start stepping back a little bit and just focus on what you want to do and give the rest to somebody else. But you can't do that if you don't have a system. So things like systems, processes, and all that kind of stuff are all attached to how your company, you as your company, is set up. Are you doing work which is going to be, social impact stuff, and you need grants and stuff to be able to do, and going into schools and education, all that kind of stuff? Are you doing it in such a way that you want to make profit, and that profit you're going to put into something else? Are you just you and you want something which is going to be relatively small so you can pivot and you don't have to do certain red tape so to be able to reach the people you actually need to? Like, actually think about these questions. Like, how big do you want to be? How far do you want to reach? All those kind of things are questions that you might want to ask yourself. Now this part here, I'm getting real close to the bit about the money part later. So this is the foundation for what we're talking about, right? This part here, I found so, man, this shifted my whole thing, right? So your product/service, right? When I've spoken to some creatives, they find it difficult, this part, because they don't see the art as a product or a service, and I get that. But hypothetically, if we did, then there's a lot we can learn from how businesses work. So if I have a show, hypothetically speaking, if it wasn't just a show, if I looked at it as a product, something I can package, something I can sell, then you can actually step back and say, okay, how can this product be marketed? How can this product be fit into this person's company structure, for example? Can I lease it? Can I patent it? Can I give someone else the rights to it so that I don't have to focus on it some more? Can I do some research and development to improve the product? Is that a question? Or you just
No.
All right. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, that I was thinking though. I wasn't asking anything.
No worries. Let the thought land, and when it does, just come out. But the reason why it was really important, why it reached out to me, is this ecosystem part. What I realize is, as an artist, we create shows, we create projects and stuff all the time, and we see them as individual products and individual shows, individual ideas. Until you get them out on paper and you realize, one, there's probably like a running thread through all of these. They're probably back to that first question, which is why you do what you do. There's probably something inside of you that made you create this thing, which means that there's always going to be a root. But then also those things might feed into each other. So for example, I may have a show, but I also like working in schools. Is there a program I can run so that everywhere I do this show, I can communicate with the schools and have them as part of the show, as part of it, but then also teach them techniques and stuff, and while I'm at it, I can ask them questions about where they are in the school. How do you handle stress and stuff? How does this look in your body? Let's put this on stage. That way I can have this link between all the things that I do so that it becomes an ecosystem. And that ecosystem becomes a list of assets. Because this is starting to business talk it, right? But if you look at it like that, then you realize how much value we actually have. So for example, I did a show in 2017 called Become Immersive, right? There were probably about 8 or 9 different versions that I've done up till now of that same show. Those are all separate assets now, when I look at them like that. Because one's 15 minutes, one's 30 minutes. One has 1 person, 2 people, 4 people. One has an extended music, one is without music. I've got all these versions that I can put, and together they form one asset. And so now, if somebody asks me for a show, I can go, okay, cool, this one's perfect here. And this is how it works. This is the music, this is the amount of people you need, this is the choreography, this is the themes, this is all that kind of stuff. So you can then develop it, and I can give you the rights to it for a price. I don't even have to be in it anymore. That's an asset. Make sense? So then comes into this part, which is working in the business and on the business. If I'm doing too much of the actual work, I don't have enough time to think about the stuff I've just mentioned. We just keep delivering, which is amazing, right? Performer extraordinaire, right? Whatever it is, I'm on stage wowing people, and this part is incredible, it's crazy. It's the bit I love the most. But if I'm spending all my time doing that, then that's all it's gonna be. And so there comes a time where we need to actually start thinking about it. Is actually, this is incredibly valuable what I'm doing. Like there's, I think a really good way of realizing what the value is getting feedback forms. It sounds really boring, but for me, it's been the most incredible part of the process. The only thing I'll say is be very mindful of the questions you ask on those feedback forms. Remember what I said earlier on, the quality of your answers are only going to be as good as the quality of your questions. So if you want to know how much you're affecting people, ask them the questions that are going to find that out. Did you like the show? 1 out of 5. That's a great question, because that's like a metric. You can grade it, you can get a %, all that kind of stuff. What has this inspired you to do differently tomorrow is a different kind of question. Like once you ask those kind of questions, then you can actually have tangible things you can put into an application for funding. You can use it as quotes on your, social media, as you're growing it, right? So working in the business is you doing the actual work, it's the delivery. But working on the business is what it takes to actually make it grow. I'm gonna pause there for a second though, because I feel like I've been talking for a while, but no one's thrown anything, so I'm
We're all
intrigued.
following you.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Any thoughts so far? Any questions or anything?
How can I do
Could
It is.
I ask you, would you like a drink?
Oh, do you know what? I've got a little tropical juice here. A top up would be amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Oh.
I like the idea of an ecosystem already because it creates this idea of like interdependency between products or like linking or malleability of like services. Because we've got with Sensoria we have like a what's it called, a rate sheet just for now, which is kind of very like she puts together rates of different jobs that we could do.
Yeah.
But just hearing the term, hearing this and assets and creative ecosystem, I've written it all down. I just started writing it all down. I was like, oh, okay then. So like the intro to sensory safety training with like a bespoke sensory room for your organization could be a package.
Yes.
Even though we've only ever delivered them separately. And like anti-ableism trainings as a part of Access Consultancy could also be a package or something that's linked and or separate. And yeah, so I'm just writing down all the offshoots of all the different so like the main title and then like all of the things that come under that and how that could be different. It could even be delivered by different people or different aspects of the thing.
And you can train people to work for you to deliver that as well, which adds another element. And for me, that package thing is the bit I've been most excited about recently. So when I'm in front of a client, one of the questions I ask is like, why do you need me? Like, let them answer that question and you'll be surprised how creative you can get with the answer that will meet their need in a way that you actually enjoy doing. So for example, this stuff I'm doing with LSBU was because they have a real big issue with the different, it's basically health and learning, right? So all the courses within health, radiology and all that kind of stuff, everyone is hella stressed. It's exam period as well, so it's extra stress. But people are just dropping off as a result. And so that is the problem. And so for me, it's like, okay, cool, how can I help them with this problem? Okay, cool, I can do it in loads of different ways. I can do workshops like this, I could do music, I could do movement, I could do art, I could do all kinds of stuff. And then I get creative. It's like, okay, and then I can give them a pitch, which is a package, right? So I say, okay, I can do one session for you, which is an hour. After this impact, this is introductory offer, you know what I'm saying? And then after that, then we'll review in a week or a month or something like that, see how people have been applying what we've done. And I have a follow-on package, which is for 3 months. Yeah.
Because we've spoken about like Access Consultancy, you told me about the idea of an audit that happens in other consultancy, and then I was like, literally just for audit, implementation, and measurable outcomes. Actually, all separate parts of it. They're not, and so you could just say, oh, I'm just coming in to do an audit, and if you want me to oversee implementation, that's a whole nother package fee, and then measure. Yeah, like you said, so that's really cool to like break it down and then.
But also, especially since we're arts and we're all in different kind of like areas of this field. Let's say, for example, I just want to dance, right? If I'm going to an institution, I got to understand what the institution wants. So, for example, if I'm going to some huge theatre, they've got a program for the year. You know, who are they trying to reach? What can I put on stage? What story can I tell which is going to reach that clientele for them? Maybe I'm exactly the person they need. And if I was to bring that person in, that's a whole different field of finance for them to get their NPO status, for example, right? And so once I understand how I fit into their ecosystem by asking them what they want, then what I'm doing seems even more valuable before I even open my mouth. Yeah? But that's all part of like the negotiation techniques and all this kind of stuff. But I find it really good to ask them the questions first, almost coach them through it. And another really random side note, sorry, but I found it really interesting trying to get them not to book me. And I know it sounds weird, but I'll be like, but why do you need me? It's like, yeah, you've got all this stuff going on already, you've got a great team, what makes you choose me? Get them to answer that question. They'll be like, yeah, but I mean, you know, you've got the budget for so-and-so, my competitor, you know? It's like, yeah, but I mean, you're fresh, you're this, that, and the other. Oh, okay, so what do you think the impact of that would be as opposed to that person? Ask them those kind of questions as if I don't want it. And that makes them dig deeper as to why they do want it from me specifically. So that was just a little side thing. Because I find that the moment I go to them and be like, it's like, doesn't work.
Or they're like, yeah, but we'll offer you only this much.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
They hard to get.
Something like
you know what? Honestly, it works. There's been times when we just like rejected jobs and we're like, no, we're not going to take it for this price. And then they're like, But like, you can give it to someone else though, and then they'll go to another company and be like, oh, actually, they don't seem to know what they're doing. We'll pay your price, you know, like.
Honestly, yeah. I've had so many examples of that. It's crazy. I won't bore you with them, but yeah, that part about pricing, and we get up to it now. With coaching, I was jumping into the corporate world, and the first project I had was I won't say the name, but it was a bank. And I went to them and stuff, and I was really fortunate that the person who was one of the decision makers in this department was vibing with me on the Zoom call, and we were like, yeah, man, it's like, oh no, I love what you're doing, blah 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 blah. I was like, yeah, bro, like, you know, I'm doing this, this is the kind of impact I can make, and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. I mean, we've already got a department that does this, but what you're doing is slightly different. I quite like your approach. I think it'll actually give, you know, my team an opportunity to see something fresh and actually learn something from each other. What's your day rate? I told him my day rate. He's like, click, turn off the recording. He's like, bro, if I tell them that, they will assume you can't deliver. Put another 0 on it. I was like, click. And I was
So
like,
what did you say your day rate was? And
my day rate.
No. That's you said click.
Yeah.
You're back in.
Exactly. That's exactly what we did. And I'm so, to this day, I'm really thankful for him for doing that, because that was like the realest response I could have got. Because he was like, either you don't know your value or you're just rubbish. Like, that was, and he was real with me, and I really appreciate that. But I really reflected on it, because it's true. If you see a price, if you see a Bugatti out on the street with like little sign in the window saying like $2,000 or £250, you'd be like, what? No way. In the same way, if you see a price that's too low, you would think either I can just take the mick with this person, or they're not actually as valuable as I thought they were. So actually pricing it is really important, because if you think about it, like, there's so much I want to say about this pricing thing.
It's true, like if you call a plumber, he's gonna quote you like 80, 90 quid or like 250 quid or whatever. You're like, that's too much, I don't want to pay that. You're gonna call another plumber, he's gonna say 250 quid, or he might even say like 280, you know, like, because that's the price of the job, you know. Whereas,
Yeah.
With dentists, they don't know how much their work is worth.
And it's weird, because we've got general fees for certain things, right? And in every industry there's like a standard, and you can either go for the standard, which means that you're kind of a commodity, because then it becomes, okay, which one's the cheapest, or you can have a brand so strong that you don't have to think about the general populace at all, right? So for me, that's one of the reasons why I did burnout prevention. Is it's a very small pool, like it's very specific. So if you look at burnout prevention, there's very few people who specialize in it. If I said I'm a coach, bro, like they're everywhere. Like, so I was like, how can I put myself aside? One, I can get a qualification by a huge brand that everybody knows, cool. Then I can specialize in something really specific, and then I can market the hell out of myself as this thing, so that when I show up at these places, people are like, probably can't afford you. So that no matter what I say, it's gonna be like, bargain. Right? Yeah. So, but we can do that as artists as well, right? So whether it's a show, whether it's like a tour, whether it's anything like that, thinking about how we present ourselves, how we put ourselves together, how we price ourselves, so that people know that actually, no, this is the real deal. If you think about it, like there are some shows that if you see it as 20 grand, you'd be like, oh snap, I didn't realize it would be that cheap. Like there are certain shows you can think of right now that if you had your own theatre and you wanted to bring them in and they said 20 grand, you'd be like, oh, that cheap. There's other shows where you'd be like, there's no way in the world I would pay that for. So a good question to ask is, why those reactions? And would that reaction come up when people see your name and that fee? Right. And what I found with the different things that I do is that there's a lot of things you put together to create that value. So, for example, the packaging thing is really good. So it's not just a show, this is a production. It's not just a production, but there's an education program. There's actually also, we go into the local community and we do like projects with the local YMCAs and all this kind of stuff. We do after school clubs. We're going to be within your city for 3 months. We're going to connect you with the other, like, do you know what I mean? All this kind of stuff. All of a sudden you can add 2 more zeros to this thing because it's not just a show now. And the fact is, you're still there for the same amount of time that you were before, but you're giving them much more value. And I realize that this is probably nothing to do with all this right now. I'm just talking. Oh, okay, cool. Yes, yeah. Oh, actually, yeah. So, okay, let me do the actual presentation now. So once you start doing that, you realize that you're able to kind of this feast famine thing for me. I realized one of the reasons why I was doing that is I wasn't thinking about the big picture. I was thinking as far as the next paycheck, effectively, the next show, the next performance, or whatever it is. The moment I started to reverse engineer from what I wanted the year to look like and how much I needed to make in the year, it changed, because I was like, okay, if I need to make this much a month or this much a year, which might be my goal, then I actually need to start packaging myself differently to be able to sell myself at this level. So that instead of doing, like, say for example, I'll be hiring out a studio and praying to Jesus and all of everything, right, for people to come, right? Instead of doing that, I'll go to the actual institution and work with them direct and say, actually, okay, I've got a program idea, 6 weeks. It's going to be for the people who have just joined your company to integrate them, to get them to the level of taking the classes in your company. It's going to be a program and it's going to cost this much. Because the institution is going to have much more finances than an individual person coming to my class. So once I started to do it like that, then it was much easier to look ahead for the year. Then I know I actually only need one of those a month to kick off for me to be able to be cool. I don't have to worry about anything else. Instead of every week having to think about trying to get people into my class. Apply that to the whole ecosystem we mentioned earlier. Then you might find that with a package strong enough, you might only need 3 a year and you'll be good. If you can create a package which is worth, I don't know, like 10 to 15K for a company or institution or organization or something like that, and you're able, and it doesn't have to be in England, and you were to sell 4 of those for the year, then that might be the buffer you need to be able to say, okay, cool, now I can actually step back for a second and have the space to think and do all this other stuff that I need to do that is working on the business.
I think also as artists we're constantly chasing people. We're waiting for people to chase us rather than chasing people. So like your strategy saying like, okay, I need to make like 100K a year. I'm gonna break that into like 50 classes, one a week, and then 3 big clients. So then you have to look for the clients. You can't wait for people to come to you because you're reverse engineering.
Your plan is very proactive. I think a lot of artists are quite reactive. Like, who's going to give me a job? Who's going to put me on stage? Who's going to give me a vision?
Yeah, and it's true. It's a good point about who's chasing who, because what I found that there's 2 concepts that come to mind, right, that I would like to share. The first one is that if you do it right, you wouldn't have to chase it all. So let's say I was to put this thing together and say, like, you know, I'm going to be dancing about this particular topic. I'm dancing about putting shows on about women's rights, right? So I did a project back in Sierra Leone, right? And I was like, okay, cool. Women's rights, that's what I'm going to be doing. Equality. That happens to be one of the Sustainable Development Goals. Cool. UN empowers the Sustainable Development Goals. So I'm going to apply to everybody who's signed into the, what's it called? Yeah, the SDGs. And I'm going to say, okay, I'm doing a project for corporate, I'm doing a project for arts, and I'm doing a project for culture, for education, right? So corporate is I'm going to use this tool, this movement process I have to create this idea about confidence within women, right? And I'm going to go into companies to do it. I'm going to work with all the women in there. I'm going to work for 3 months. I need to actually do this. This is dope. For culture, I'm going to go into the arts institutions, all that kind of stuff, and I'm going to support all the female leaders, for example, who are putting on shows, but they're also finding resistance in trying to get seen in the pool of people who are speaking. Also in education, I'm going to do a program which is going to focus on young girls, right? So now I have something which can actually be funded, because anybody who signed up to the SDGs is going to be connected with the UN, and there's going to be different kinds of funding, right? So now I'm like, okay, cool. Now I don't need to chase. These people are all looking for somebody to be able to help them with this. I just need to put the light on the top of my house so they know it's here, and they will come to me. Yeah?
Yep.
So that for me has been like a big shift. The other one, I completely forgot. So it will come back to me later. But yeah, that's the thing with the Feast and Family, right? With the chasing. The whole bucket thing is more about personal finance. Well, not personal, it's actually business as well. It's like how we separate our finances. One of the things I find is like a really key thing is that we would, when you have a business, right, corporate wise, there's a whole department for client acquisition, right? Their whole role is to find new clients. They'll be out wining them, dining them, taking them to conferences and all that kind of, taking them to all this kind of stuff, right? A whole department for that. There'll be a whole department which is on growth. So we're looking for different clientele, right? So we're looking for, okay, what's the new market that's emerging? What's all this kind of stuff? We as artists, we don't do that. Like, either of them a lot of the time, right? We're not looking for partners, we're not looking for clients, we're not looking for whatever. We just like what we do and hope people would like it too.
Yeah, enough to pay for it.
Right, enough to pay for it. So sometimes the structure that we need to put around it doesn't have to be too complicated to be able to do a lot of the stuff I'm talking about. It just starts by thinking who would benefit from this and how can I package it in such a way that it's extremely clear why they would book this thing or buy this painting or, you know, invest in this show. Yeah. And then you start the operating part of things. This right here, having a budget for this is huge. So like, has anyone read Profit First? Okay, so it's this book, and basically it talks about the finances of a business in such a way that instead of, like, something I heard a lot of is that you kind of take your piece of the pie after you make your first million or whatever, right? Business wise. I know it's a different kind of thinking, right? But his point is that actually if you manage how the money comes in and it's split, then you can be spending from the get-go, and you can make profit from the start if you factor it into the way you build your business up. So a lot of companies start off at, like, with this as 100%, basically, like, and our equivalent is studio fees, booking the dancers, it's doing all this kind of stuff for our show, and then there's nothing left for you as the founder, right? I don't know about you, but I've been there. Like, at the end of the day, I paid everybody. I'm like, right, Macad's then, eh? Like, do you know what I mean? I got nothing at the end of it, and I've just put how many hours. And if you think about it, right, there's hours to think about the show I've just created. There's hours of thinking about the choreography. There's delivering the choreography. There's the shows. There's booking all these people. All of that is hours, is time. None of that is being paid for. But I'll pay for the people who are delivering it because
they deserve to get paid, obviously.
They deserve to get paid. And who doesn't for some reason? Right. So
it's your idea, so
it was
why
my idea.
are you getting money as well? Like,
the audacity. So it took a lot of shifting for me to be like, actually no. And anybody who's done like Arts Council funding, one of the genius things I think they do is that you have to put a fee for yourself, which was actually in 2017 the first time I did that. And I was like, why am I not doing this
on everything?
On everything, right? And the beauty of it is, going back to what we said before, the moment you start to do that is the moment you start to actually be able to step back. A really good tool is to break down that system I mentioned of how your business runs. If you step back at what and look at what you do as a business, what are the different things you do? There's marketing, like so the time you do your posts and all this kind of stuff. It's replying to DMs. It's doing your reels, all that kind of stuff. There's the accounting side of things, which is doing your I was about to say timesheets, but all your invoices and all that kind of stuff, but making sure your taxes, tax balance, all that kind of stuff. You've got your acquisition, which is actually going out and finding new work. There's the applications and stuff, the admin and your PA. There's the actual delivery, which is like there'll be a performer, but there'll also be a choreographer. There'll also be a director, the producer, and all of them are you. I've just mentioned 8 things, right? But we don't pay ourselves, right? But if you were to step back and pay those 8 people, what would you pay them for this thing? And actually think about that, so that when you start feeing it, you want to have line items for these things. Now, if they all come to you, that's a whole different thing, right? But it allows you to step back and say, if I was to be sick, if I was to not want to do it this month, if I want to travel or whatever, but this thing still had to go on, then there's a system in place which means that actually I can fill someone in to do these roles and it will still work without me. And that's where we kind of want to be. The last thing I'll say about that is, in terms of the mental health side of things, is separating the person from the art, I think, is one of the keys to helping us maintain our mental health. It's really difficult because it's an extension of who we are. It's our creativity, and we put it out there to be criticized and critiqued and all this kind of stuff. But the moment we can't separate us from what we create, it means that when what we create is criticized, we risk internalizing it. So instead of it failing, we become the failure. So separating those two is really important. And all the stuff I mentioned is really difficult to do unless we do that. Because trying to put a price on the art that we think is ourselves feels like we're selling ourselves. So we need to separate that first. And know that actually there's some art which I'm never going to put a price on. This is just for me. And some art I'm going to sell like crazy, because that's going to be my pool house. Right? So being able to separate in our head to be like, okay, this is the stuff that is untouchable. This is for me. This is priceless. And putting that boundary around it means that everything else you can create that structure. Exactly. Yeah? Make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. And then really simple, the difference between these 3 is the cost is the operating, it's the outgoings, it's your overheads, right? It's basically what it costs to do, right? The price is the cost plus your profit, basically, which is really important because I never used to put profit into anything. It's just I used to always break even. If I always zero, always just like yes. It's like no, there's nothing left. That means that if anything goes wrong, there's zero margin. Like thinking back now, is actually kind of mad. So if I for whatever reason don't get there before the shop closes and I can't get that thing, which means that or if I miss that train or whatever, there is no margin of error ever if I'm always aiming for 0. So price, so markup, for example, it depends. Everyone can put their own markup in, right? 10%, 20, 30, 50, 100%, whatever you want to do, having some kind of percent as a profit, which then you can invest back into yourself. Whether you need to do more training, whether you need to hire somebody, whether you need to take some time off, right? All that kind of stuff won't happen unless there's margin for profit. But then this part, value, is the bit I talk about till the cows come home. Till the cows come home. This is basically what I was talking about earlier, because the value has nothing to do with you at all. So the value is everything to do with the client. How valuable is what you're doing to them? And let them price it. So, yes?
No, I just clocked the 0. The guy
Yes.
being like, the Adam of the 0.
Yeah, exactly. Right? So, for example, this is why if I charge an individual for a class, it's going to be different to if I charge JP Morgan, even if it's the same amount of time. Because the value to them is different. So, the value to an individual is that it's for their mental health, it's for their fitness, it's for whatever, right? But for a company, they're looking at the fitness of their teams. They're looking at the, like, so for example, I did a workshop for some accountancy firm, and I can't remember how much it was, but it was a lot. But it was for 30-minute session, right? 30 minutes. What can you do in 30 minutes? But the value they got from it is that their teams got back to their desks ready to rumble. Right? It was like a shockwave in the middle of the day when people are starting to slump. So their performance went skyrocketing. No matter how much money they paid me, they got 100 times more by performance. Right? So if you think about it that way, a really good way I usually do it is, once I've asked them, like, why they want to do this in the first place, asking them questions like, if this was to work, what would be the impact to the company? Right? Whether it's, like I said, if it's a theatre, if it's a touring company, if it's a business like a corporate company, whatever it is, whoever you're marketing into, asking that question, like, if this was to be like a smash, what would smashing out of the park even look like for you? How would we know that we've reached that goal, and what will be the impact on your bottom line? And then take 10% of that.
Did you ever try like just pushing it, like seeing what you can ask for and seeing what people say yes to?
Sometimes. Yeah.
Just be like, I'll get a think of a ridiculous number, and then be like, yeah, this is gonna cost 200. Like, this is gonna cost 200,000. And you're like, yeah, all right.
Do you know what's crazy? Because you just illustrated something there, right? What is a ridiculous number?
Exactly, because I think this is the thing as artists, like, you're already doing something that you love, and you might feel a bit guilty taking payment for it because you was doing this anyway. So like the fact that someone's willing to pay you, was just like, all right, cool, I'll take £100. But like that £100 you took, that might be worth like 200k to them. Like, so like, but you don't see that in yourself. You're like, I got this guy to pay me £100 to do something I was already doing. But like,
yeah, but here's the thing though, as an artist, right, or as anything, we invest. You know how they say, what is it, 10,000 hours to be a master or something, right? I don't know about all that. Right? But they say it's 200 hours to be at least proficient, right? And so most of us though, at this point, might have even clocked 10,000 hours long time ago, right? Which means you're an expert. But the thing with being an expert is you think it's easy because it's easy to you. So you don't realize how difficult it is for them. Like, a really good task is to pay attention to the kind of questions that you get answered about what you do and how you answer them in such a way that they might be like, like, pay attention to those things. Like, so now when I'm in talks and negotiations and all this kind of stuff, I'm paying attention to what are the things that they just don't know that seem like
easy to me.
Basic to me, right? Because I've been doing it for so long. It's like when people say, "Oh, are you a good dancer?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a good dancer." "Oh, you seem confident." Yo, I've been dancing for over 20 years now. If I'm not good at this point, like, I've got evidence to back it up. There's no reason why I shouldn't be, right? In the same way, when you go into these places, understanding of our value inherently will make that a lot easier. But here's the thing, right? That £100 might seem huge for me if I've never charged that before, and it's got nothing to do with them.
Yeah.
So, like, for me, that's why I asked, like, what's a ridiculous number? Because I've been in that scenario so many times. Like the one I told you about on the phone when he turned it off. Adding a 0 to it was a ridiculous number for me. I was like, what? Like, even the number I gave him was pushing it. Yeah. It was pushing it a bit. I was like, oh, he's a big wig. Let me give him a number that's kind of like to make him know I'm serious. And my guy turned it off and said, if you don't add another 10x on my ridiculous number.
Yeah.
I was like, nah, this is crazy.
But that's the thing. Like, you might have been like, like they might have paid that 10x and been like, that was worth it. We got a bargain, you know.
Well, of course they
You
would.
could have charged 100x and then they would have been like, oh, this is a fair price. You know?
Exactly.
Like, we don't actually know what our work is valued at, and I think that's a lot of things for a lot of artists. They don't actually. They have like no. They're like, is this worth £100? Is this worth £1,000? Is this worth £100,000? I have no idea. I just do this for me, you know. Like,
Yeah.
And no one's ever come to me and been like, oh, I think you should be paid this much for your work. So I think it's like, you created something from nothing and now you have no idea how valuable it is, and it's up to you as an artist to be like, do you know what? I'm dope. I should just charge like 10k for a performance, you know, and see who's willing to pay it.
There is so much going on in my head right now. I'm completely forgetting about the presentation, but I've got to get this out. The British Museum has artifacts there that culturally hold no financial value. But if you were trying to buy them from the British Museum, where it doesn't even belong, you'll be surprised. Have you ever actually asked how much these things are worth?
Yeah,
It's crazy. But then, for example, it'll be a mask, which is more of a spiritual significance to the tribe.
And some guy will make it for you for like $10. Like
Exactly.
a traditional
Right.
one, like a real one.
And that's just for the materials, right? So, like, everyone's heard about that idea about a bottle of water. If you, depending on where you buy it, will be its value. That can be the same thing with us. So one of the things I would encourage is looking at the business side of your artistry as an experiment. Everything is an experiment. Try different things. See what it feels like to say, yeah, I'm going to charge 10 grand for this. Just saying it out loud and see how that feels. And actually try it. You know, next time someone asks, right? Actually try it. One of the things I really like doing is leaving a pause after the number. Because what sometimes happens is you say the price, nothing happens, and you're like, but I mean, we can probably do it for them. Do you know what I mean? Don't do that. Yeah.
But I've also found when people don't know what it is that you do, which I think is a thing with a lot of artists, they don't understand it, they don't understand the culture you're from. I've also recent times been thrown numbers, and then they say, so how many days is that? Because they have no clue how to like price your work. And the worst thing you can do is, you know, fuck around and find out. It's be audacious, but it's not audacious because you're actually just like, because we got a consultancy fee. So they said, how many days would this be for you guys? And I just said the lowest number of days I thought was not too audacious, over 3 months. And then all they did, and then look, I went to low or high work. They were like, that would usually be actually 3.5 days. I think I said 3. So I went too high. And then said, we usually do 3.5 days. I said, that's actually fun. Because it is our first job, so I don't mind to then, I think I probably will work more than 3.5 days on it anyway, because it's our first job in that way and I really care about it. And I want to deliver like the most top tier consultancy ever. But yeah, more so when they don't understand what the hell it is you do, they might throw you a number and be like, how many hours is this, how many days is it? Just fuck around and find out. Like, I did ask someone else from a completely different industry, what do you charge? And it was similar. So.
Do you know what I find as well is that the more you get people to say yes, the more comfortable you become. So, for example, the first time is going to be a bit mad when you put that extra 0 on it, right? It's going to be a bit mad, shaking off screen on Zoom. You know what I mean? But then after the second or third, you're kind of like, yeah, this is my price now.
Just make your home too comfortable. Like, I don't like going out. So if someone offers me a job, I'm like, well, it's going to cost me 10k to get me to leave my house. Because I don't want to go. I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
And if they're willing to pay it, I'm like, yeah, I guess alright, I'll come.
And if you look at it like that as well, there's actually wisdom in that as well as in being hilarious. So, like, if it's not something you were planning to do, be audacious with it. Like, I can't say it any more than that. Like, for me, there's some times where it's really annoying as well. I think I'm doing something that's like really gonna be winding them up the wrong way, and they're like, okay, sure. And I'm like, yeah. Oh my goodness, I'm missing it again.
It's just a generous.
Yeah. Now I've said yes, I have to do it, right? But yeah, I think it's all a journey with this. Time is the only thing that we can't get back though. So like put a value on it for yourself. I genuinely don't necessarily mind what my upper tier is, but I definitely care what my lower tier is. It's like, what won't I go below? Like that for me is the much more important number. For me, individually, this is, right?
Well, this is where I think it gets a bit tricky with the arts and all of the union rates, etc. Because it's kind of commonly agreed upon that these rates are like fair within the industry, within the current kind of economic circumstances, etc. So then it's like, normally if people are trying to push it, it's because they're going below industry rates. But then it's like, if you feel that you're worth more than the industry rate because of specific specialisms or like value that you feel that you bring, it's like how to be clear enough about that they're not just gonna see the price and then go, oh yeah, well actually I can just go and get another dancer or DJ or producer that will
I mean,
take the industry standard or a bit below it, and then yeah.
I think that's something you have to accept for your brand, right? Like if someone's like, oh well, you can't afford this level of, you know, like not everyone can afford Michael Jackson, and some people are gonna buy Chris Brown, you know, because
Yeah, Chris.
I think relationships and accountability though as well is a big thing. I don't think that should be overlooked in the business of the arts, because someone, like, you might charge higher but you might come more like, it's about the relationship you build as well. It's not just like the rate that you set. People might be more willing to pay you more because they know, oh, Francesca's sick, man, like did my last gig, and like then we had this chat afterwards and we just got deep into life, and now she's gonna join me on tour. So it's like those in betweens where you're like building the relationship on a personal level. People will buy into you because of who that. It's weird because you want to separate, like you said, the art from the artist too, but also I think we don't put enough energy on like relationship building as artists, because if we're thinking about a business, we're like, oh, I need to get my fee, I need to get paid, rather than like, but who's this person? Not like who's this person who has all this money, but like who's this person and what, like, I don't know, it's interesting.
But I think that goes back to what André was saying before about like you are your brand. So like when someone's connected with you and they're like you've done a few events for Rain, and it's because we were like, oh, when we hired Francesca last time, we liked her, so let's hire her again to do another DJ job or another thing. You know? So it's like from working with you previously, we liked your brand and what your brand bought, so then we bought it again, you know, we bought the product again because it was something that we worked on. I think that's also part of it. Like we don't, I think because we are also like our brand as well as being the artist, we don't see like social interactions as also networking as well. So it's like, well, you might have been thought as just hanging out and stuff, but like a lot of that is networking, because you're networking with other artists and other companies and other brands, even though they're just appearing to you as other dancers and other people.
You never know who they're connected to.
You never know who's in the room.
Yeah. And people bring your name up in conversations when you're not around, you know, because of who you connected with and you build relationships. So like, when you're not around and you're doing other things, and like there are people in other rooms talking, like bringing up your name, and you know, or like, oh, something came up and be like, oh, I know the person who's really good at that or does that, and they're bringing up your name and stuff because of those connections you built, you know, like a year ago or whatever. So.
In fact, the brand, one of the definitions is what people say about you when you're not in the room. And there's another definition, which is basically what comes to mind when your name comes up, effectively, right? So what do if I think Pepsi, I also think like Coke and all this kind of stuff, right? If I think Bugatti, I also think of certain different types of cars. Like, what comes into mind when your brand comes up, and it puts you in that kind of area, which means that I wouldn't necessarily think about an industry standard if I was thinking about a Ferrari. You know, like it's Ferraris, for example, are really poor cars, like actual vehicles. They're really poor in that sense. So they're really low. They make a lot of noise. The chassis aren't strong anymore. All this kind of stuff. But they have a brand which puts them so far apart from everything else that they are standalone just by the name. So much so that you can say the brand and not the model.
Yeah.
Right. So when it comes to us as brands, it's important to notice that one thing I'll add on to this is, and this is just a tip, I would say for anybody, right? Something that I've come across right now, which I'm like, woo! This has added zeros to this thing, is one of the best things you can do for your brand is be a pleasure to work with. It's so simple. But if they can be like, okay, if I can get Saskia, that means I don't have to worry about access. You're lifting the weight off that person so that they can think about the other stuff they need to think about. Right? So if I can get Fran, I don't have to worry about who's going to be in the room because they're just going to love it. But I also know that you're going to be thinking about me, for example, because there might be things you're going to suggest that I haven't thought about. So I know that with you in the room, I've got another set of eyes. Plus, I would absolutely get you a drink to make sure you're okay because I know that you're going to put your best and you're not even going to be thinking about breaks. Do you know what I'm saying? So for me, the best thing you can do is be a pleasure to work with and think about, like one of the things I try and do is think about it from the client's perspective. What is it that they really want from this engagement? Can I fulfill that in a way that is easy for me, but really big and impactful for them? And sometimes it's the tiniest things. Show up early. Like random stuff, you know. Say hello to everybody, including the cleaners. You know, ask people how they're doing. You know, remember their names. Like just random stuff. It is hard. That's what it takes effort. But I'm telling you, what's also hard is having to stay at the price we're at. I would rather that hard and actually build relationships and have to think about it than have to stay effectively fighting for the bottom. So I think that's enough of this slide, yeah.
Everyone should be a bit more Hailey Bieber.
Hailey B.
She sold her company she started in 2022 for $1 million. No, $1 billion. She sold it. She only sells on her website, one source, less than 10 products. She got 800 million in cash and shares. Yeah, for sure. But also, even with nepotism, to one website, less than 10 products, 1 billion. It was a lot of buying on her brand. What her product might be mediocre, but people think it works because they think they're gonna look like it. The anger of it is also.
What you're getting at is really key. Is like making people come direct to you and having specificity, and sometimes less is more.
They're like, if your brand is good enough, they'll be like, I'll come to you because it can be like, I want you, I want that, I can be part of that.
Any single slippery stuff from Marie?
There's Metal with her and Justin Bieber and in the beginning. Yeah. I heard they got no prenup.
All right, so I think we're pretty much running up to the end now. What time is it now?
It's never the end.
Literally 59.
59.
I didn't want to peek because it was so good, but I really had.
Oh, seriously, you've just been holding it.
Yeah.
I
My leg
appreciate
was
that.
shaking so much because I really didn't want to go. But then I was like,
that little foot. Yeah, so I think that's a good place to kind of round up. But a question I would ask is like, is there maybe? Actually, yeah. So let me get to there were other things, but I won't. You have this. What I'll do, I'm gonna send you all this, yeah.
Oh really?
So it's obviously there's conversations around a lot of the stuff we'll be talking about, and these are just slides. But each of the slides, like there's an exercise in there you can do, which is like your CEO week, There's some questions that you can ask yourself about like who you are and what you want to do. But it's just stuff to kind of get yourself into that space, right? So one of the things I would really love from you all though is there's a feedback form here. Which in yeah. See?
My God.
You see it? Yes.
Is your the consultation and your coach, but pre burnout, avoiding burnout, is that just for companies or is it, can anyone do that?
Anyone?
That was a big bang.
That was a good knock. Yeah, it's for anyone.
And does it have to be an art?
No, doesn't have to be an art. Everyone gets
Maybe
burnt
that's
out.
big, you know, big corporation.
Yeah.
Arts
So-
don't have money. Where's the money, man?
But yeah, the feedback form is really good because it gives me an idea because I want to do more stuff like this. But I also want to know what would be valuable to you all as well. So there's a bit, I think there's a question in there which is what is one question that you still have unanswered? So it would be great if you could fill that one in specifically because that can give me stimulus for something else. Because I know there's a lot of sources of support now, which is amazing. But I've also noticed that a lot of it is still covering similar kind of ground. So there might be specific things that you are not getting from some of these places. And if there are, let me know and I'll produce something for it. Yeah. But thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. One final thought I would love to give you all is have a think about how to protect your mind, body, and spirit.
Don't let women stress you.
This guy, I had a response for everything. Yeah, have a think about that. Like, how can you put things into your routines, your habits, your and not just surface stuff either. One of the reasons why I got into burnout prevention specifically is that burnout seemed to come up with a lot of clients, right? But then what I also noticed is that when we talked about burnout, it was very surface stuff. So if you're only taking time off and you come back and you're still stressed, then maybe time wasn't the only issue. So, for example, I found a lot of people where they struggle with their self-image, for example. If their self-image isn't strong, then they feel the need to get validation from everybody else or please everybody, which means they say yes a lot, which means that they end up being the strong one within the group or in the team or whatever, but then that ultimately hurls them towards a brick wall, which they never see coming. So perfectionists, this idea of something that we'll never really reach, but then we beat ourselves when we don't reach it.
Our alarm was
Also, oh, hey, got you.
so the alarm was
They saw it.
yeah. Sort of. Yeah.
Please try to take me home.
Anya's calling.
It should be the fire. It'll be the fire brigade, but I'll go and have a look.
Yeah, Anya's calling them now. But
Oh.
yeah, who knows how long the alarm has been going off for?
Oh, snap.
Oh shit.
I only heard it like it's on the outside of the building. Because the other side of the building they
In
won't
the top.
trust in.
See.
And
We should
such
check
an
with them
alarm.
what time they finish.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you all. This has been fun. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yes,